Yo, what's up, fam? Sorry, I had to get the camera. Got to get the camera right. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Appreciate y'all piling in. New pod alert. Long form, hour 51 minutes. I cannot read y'all messages right now, so if you can't hear me, sorry. We started out, we talking about Dr. Umar Johnson and his relationship with him and his daughter. Don't know why we took 15 minutes on that. But then we go to Ice Cube sitting down with Cam Newton. This was a while ago, but I thought it was important to discuss. One of the things that we do believe in Black Dads Club is relationships. Not red pill. We're not one of these, hey, don't date, because that's impossible. But we discuss what Cam Newton and Ice Cube talks about. And one of the things that Ice Cube talks about is, how he stayed married for 32 years, which I think is an amazing accomplishment. And we go into it like basically, when you're in these type of relationships, one of the biggest things is you both have to decide that you don't want to leave. So we went through that. Dad tip of the week, Gavin speaks on how he moved his wife into his house, some mistakes that he made, things that you can avoid in the future. Then we discussed Jada and Will. Jada stating that, one day they'll live together again, even though they're still married. I guess we could have talked about that tonight. Is the ideal of maybe we'll say that for next week. Do you think you should have separate rooms in the houses as a married couple, or do you think that saves a marriage even? Then we discussed Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Coogler for their night at the Oscars. Briefly talked about I believe her name is Laurel. Going back to that. And then we ended up here. Now, this is a good part right here. Jay-Z speaks on if he's too old for battling in hip-hop culture. And we didn't spend a lot of time here, but I thought that was an important conversation. I actually wanted to think about it a little bit because it just popped into the timeline. We added it into the show. But one of the questions that I asked, actually, this is a real Gavin post. I asked if battle rapping was still needed, right? Like if it was cultural or is it just the culture, right? And by cultural, do black men compete against other black men just in general, right? It's just something that we do. Or has battle rap just become something that we think we should do, right? So that's the difference in the question on, is it culture or is it cultural, right? Cultural, you can make anything cultural. And has battle rapping become cultural? I do think that Jay-Z is speaking as an older guy. And one of the things that we didn't dive into it, one of the reasons why I'm late, I was hanging out with one of my homeboys because we was having this exact conversation. And it was this question of, hey, as we mature as men, black men, since this is a majority black podcast, it should, should there be growth, right? Or should we always have to say, well, you did it, so I should be able to do it? And it's a little bit hypocritical, as you can see, podcast. I'm a hypocrite, so what? I tell Gav he needs to put black men, we're hypocrites, so what? So it'll pop up more in our SEO. But I'll talk to him on that. But, it's one of those things where as older black men, to say, hey, I did this, I went through this, you shouldn't do it, right? And here's the reasons why, right? Because one of the things that Jay-Z speaks on is in battling, sometimes when you take someone else's livelihood away from them, right? Yeah, you destroyed them, but you haven't just taken away the other rapper's livelihood, right? You've taken away the engineer's livelihood, the executive assistant livelihood, right? The tour that he may go on, right? It's affecting more people, and is it something that we need to become more aware of in our culture? And funny enough, again, going to the hypocrite portion, we discuss, kids going on spring break and how, as adults we overreact because we've all been there, right? So I guess that could be seen as hypocritical, but we were speaking on rap and rap culture in general. Then we discussed Kenya Martin going, affronting a producer over some old videos. And then we wrapped it up with Ruth Chris with the new dress code. Not mad at it. I'm really, really not mad at it. I know Ruth Chris is like the McDonald's steakhouses. But, they didn't say, hey, don't wear it in Ruth Chris at all, because I think Ruth Chris knows their audience. It was like, hey, you're going to be in the bar area. Most Ruth Chris have a bar area. And, if people are there with their families and they're dressed, decently, I'm not mad at the don't have your pants around your butt and don't wear a hat in the dining room at a restaurant that you're about to drop $300 at. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. And then we wrapped up with March Madness and UNC's. They did fire Hubert Davis. We called it again. So that was the show yesterday, out on all platforms. Do us a big solid. If you have not left us a review on iTunes, if you could, I believe we got to get to like 100 reviews, and then they'll actually start posting us so the pod will be pushed out more. So if you have not left a review, please go leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, let people know, what you take from the pod, what you enjoy about the pod, and we'll go from there. Tonight, so we got 2 things that we're going to talk about tonight. 2 things. I'm going to open up with a sister that's talking about allyship. And then we're going to wrap it up discussing something that I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper on the pod. It's 2 parts of Cam Newton's interview with Jason Whitlock that I want to play and I want to discuss. And then we're going to wrap up tonight. But appreciate y'all for piling in. Again, I can't see y'all right now. I see here. All right, I got the comments up now. I can see it. Sorry, man. My eyes itching again. I was hanging out with one of my homeboys who was having a stick, and now the smoke want to get in my eye. All right, let's hop to it. How y'all doing tonight? I'm going to take it that everybody's doing good. All right, let's move this here. Now, I'm pulling this up because this is a conversation that I was having. I know the pollen is beating us down. We need a good rain day. All right, let's see if I can pull this up here. Boom, there we go. Now I'm gonna play this because I was having a conversation with one of my homegirls. So I always tell y'all I'm having a conversation with a homegirl. There's like 4 ladies that I speak to almost on a daily basis. These are not romantic relationships. These are friends. And sometimes these conversations get heated, right? But I always need a woman's point of view on things because I know as men sometimes we think one way and women think completely a different way. And one of the conversations that I was having with one of the young ladies was in the academy, right? College. Our women are indoctrinated, right? There's an allyship that occurs between our women. When I say our women, I'm speaking about Afro-American women. I guess you can extend that to all black women, even black women in the diaspora that in the United States, that they have with feminism, right? So feminism, majority Anglo-Americans, right? and it seems to be constantly putting us at odds with a constant gender war, right? And this young lady is speaking on the ideal of performative allyship, something that I stress often. Now, most of the time when we come onto this live, there's not many sisters here. Mimi always pop in. I see a few other ladies who sometimes pop in. But I always tell black men, I was like, if a woman says that she's a feminist, I pretty much tune out immediately, right? Because I understand that the allyship, there is no allyship, right? I understand that feminism is one wing of the I want to use another term outside of racist, supremacist, right? Feminism is one wing of the feminist bird, and on the other side of the feminist bird is patriarchy. These things work together. They're what keeps supremacy afloat. Feminism on one side, patriarchy on the other side. So feminism is where the ladies are going to reside, and patriarchy is where it's assumed that men reside. Except we understand as black men that there has never been an allyship, right? It's why as black men, I constantly tell brothers, right, we're not part of the patriarchy. The patriarchy does not include us. The patriarchy includes more white women than it even includes white men, right? Because you have the patriarch, right? And then you have his mother, you have his wife, and then you have his daughters, right? Like the patriarchy includes like everything that he does in the patriarchy is at the behest of these women, right? Which is how feminism came to be. It came to be. Feminism runs right with abolition, right? It's running parallel to abolition if you ever go to the roots of it. And again, this young lady, she speaks to us. I'm gonna play what she says here because she's talking to sisters. It's about 5 minutes long. I don't think I'm gonna let the whole 5 minutes play, but we're gonna let her speak for a moment because this is what, as men, kind of help us understand why when you hear someone says that they're a womanist or they're a feminist, why you can honestly tune out of that conversation. I wouldn't even say engage in that conversation. Engaging in conversations right now is worthless. But let's let her speak.
Specific type of woman. She has the yard sign. She voted for Kamala. She cried on election night. She posted the black square in 2020.
She didn't vote for Kamala.
She called herself an ally, right? And she's still participating in racism actively, just not in a way she's willing to see. So first, let's be very clear about who we're talking about. Because white women is not one thing. The majority of white women have voted Republican in every presidential election since at least the year 2000. And that includes 2024. The white liberal woman is a specific subset. College educated, more likely urban, feminist identity, progressive politics. She shows up to the marches, she follows the right accounts. She knows the vocabulary, and she genuinely believes that makes her different. And that belief is exactly the problem. This is not a new character. She's been here before. In 1866, black women and white women built the suffrage coalition together, like side by side.
All right. First mistake that is often made is that when they were building this suffrage movement, it wasn't because women could not vote, right? The whole idea of feminism came to be because at the time, yes, only men could vote. But remember, this only white men could vote because black men are actually enslaved, okay? When black men became free, a lot of black men were landowners. So when feminists created this idea of the suffrage movement, what they did is they used our sisters, right, to say, hey, you can't vote either, right? Now, mind you, these women are coming out of the apartheid, right? They could never vote, right? This is the first time they're getting freedom for the first time in their life. But all of a sudden, after emancipation, it's like we need to build a coalition.
Then the 15th Amendment came, giving black men the right to vote, but not women. White suffragists didn't just split from the coalition.
Now, mind you, when they're giving black men to vote here, remember, during this time frame, they had already said only men white men can vote. So with the abolition of slavery, they were keeping the same rules. They did not change the rules. They did not say, hey, black women, we're now excluding you, right? But this is how it was pitched, and this is how it's actually still being taught in the academy. And I'm going to get to the conversation that me and my homegirl was having at the end of this.
They turned. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton began making openly racist arguments, saying that educated white women deserved the vote more than formerly enslaved men. The coalition that black women helped build was now being used against them. Black women kept organizing.
That was always the point. That was always the point. If you go and read anything from Elizabeth Cady Stanton, she is clear, right? It 100% just used black women against black men during the emancipation, during parts of the 15th Amendment. They never cared about black women. Again, I encourage anybody, look up and read any of the writings from Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Check it out.
Anyway, they built the National Association of Colored Women in 1896, kept fighting for voting rights, labor rights, anti-lynching legislation, like all of it, all at the same time. Then 1920, the 19th Amendment passed. White women celebrated. Black women in the South were still being turned away from the polls by literacy tests, poll taxes, and the threat of violence. Now, when they reached out to those same suffrage organizations that they helped build, those organizations said it was a race issue. It wasn't their problem. They got their win and they closed the door. Every single time is the same structure. Black women do the work inside a coalition. The coalition wins, and black women are left out of the outcome. And the white women in those coalitions, the progressive ones, the ones who believed in the cause, they accepted that. Every time. Now, here's where it gets specific. McKinsey and Lean In did a study. More than 80% of white women said they consider themselves allies to women of color at work. Only 40% had ever spoken out against racism when they witnessed it at work. 8 in 10 called themselves allies. Less than half acted like it. That gap has a name in academic research. Performative allyship, defined as easy, costless actions, motivated primarily by the desire to feel like one of the good ones. The yard sign, the black square, the march that felt meaningful but changed nothing structurally. Actions that serve the ally's conscience more than the people the ally claims to support. And here's the part that doesn't make it into the conversation enough. A white liberal woman can hold every correct opinion about reproductive rights, climate, and gun control, and still choose a neighborhood because of its school district, knowing exactly what the school district's demographics are. She can post about housing inequality and participate in gentrification. She can say Black Lives Matter and then turn around and call the police. She can vote blue in every election and still cross the street.
They don't vote blue in every election.
The research is consistent on this, right? Progressive racial beliefs and racially segregating behavior can exist in the same person at the same time without ever having to reconcile them, because she never has to. Nothing in her life has ever required it. So here's what the evidence shows. In 2024, Black women delivered 92% of their vote to Kamala Harris. 52% of white women voted for Trump. And when Black women said we were stepping back and protecting our peace, withdrawing from political organizing, some of those same liberal white women asked why. Why are you stepping back? We need you. This is not...
Okay, she goes on and on about performative allyship. And I'm stopping it here, right? But I'm playing this because the administration is to a point now where it's kind of making everybody alarmed that there is no allyship, right? And again, this is majority men that are listening right now, right? This is not to bang on our sisters, right? It is a reason for you to understand that as long as there's an allyship when it comes to feminism, right? And long as women believe that they are a part of the feminist structure, that is hard for a black community to build itself. All right. This young lady, she almost got it. She's close. She's so close. Right? But for everything that she's complaining about that she's not receiving from white women, there is a demographic of individuals that are the most progressive in voting. There's a demographic of individuals that vote at the second highest rate to black women when it comes to progressive issue. There is a demographic of voters that actually vote for women's issues at a higher rate than women by and large, right? It's a male group, by the way. There is a group of individuals that support for agency and autonomy, right? She's close. She has not said that. You're typically not going to get that from the ladies. The conversation that me and my friend was having, the conversation that I was having is an advisement that in the academy, and when I say the academy, I'm talking about when you go to college, secondary, education, right? So college, master's, doctorate. Most of the time, our sisters are going to be indoctrinated with a version of feminism, right? Even if it's the ideal of being a womanist, right? I forget who coined that term. I forget if it was Bell Hooks or Audre Lorde, right? But it's basically saying, I recognize that feminism does not include black women, so I'm creating this new term. Apologies, I forget to say which one. It's he's Audre Lorde or Bell Hooks, right? But there is this in the academy, though, right? At black women, when they go to college, black women start going to college at higher rates than black men, I believe in 2006. Up until that point, more black men graduated from college. I know it's positioned as if that has never happened, but it was fairly recent, almost within the last 20 years, where black men led in college degrees. But in the academy, if you take a women's studies class, right, gender studies class, there's a good chance that our sisters are going to be exposed to Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Kimberly Crenshaw, if they stay in it, to a lesser extent, Angela Davis, Patricia Collins. They're going to get that indoctrination. Whereas when black men go to the academy, black male studies is a very, very new field. If it's 6 years old, I'd be surprised, right? But there definitely isn't any Dr. Tommy Curry, Dr. Hassan Johnson. Probably is never going to have the cachet to really be known in that field. But at the academy, black men are not indoctrinated with, Dr. Claude Anderson when it comes to black economics. We're not indoctrinated with Dr. Henry Clark when it comes to black studies or black history. We're not educated with the sociological programming of black males from Dr. Huey P. Newton even, right? We're not studying Dr. King or Malcolm X or even the Nation of Islam during that time frame, which did a lot of works during the apartheid in America, right? So I applaud her for saying this, but it's one of the reasons why I always point out to black men, which is why if you listen to the pod long enough, I always tell y'all, if someone says they're a feminist, I tune out, right? Because chances are they have not dug deep enough into the history to understand that the performative allyship is not just a fragmentation between black women and white women, right? But it has caused a fragmentation in the black community between the black male and the black female. And I can't be pro that, right? I cannot say that is the right way. So I wanted to play that because I think the sisters are starting to get it. I think with this last election, I think a lot of people are starting to understand a lot of things that they believe, was BS, right? I think a lot of my Latino brothers and sisters are starting to realize that a lot of things that were said was BS, right? And I think a lot of my sisters are starting to understand that a lot of things were said was BS. And I think my brothers need to make sure that this is not the time to kumbaya. This is the time to dig your heels in, right? and be more anti things that are breaking apart the black community. I always say, and I need to say it more. I just needs to be entrenched in my heart, is that if we want to heal the black community or rebuild the black community, that we have to, the two things that we have to focus on the hardest in our community is, one, we need to vote, right? Which means I really, 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 really hope that black Americans, are 90% registered to vote. We're at about 60%. I really think we can. I think we can clear it over 75 to 80% for sure by this year, right? That needs to be something that we do. We have to be registered to vote, right? And then I'm not telling you how to vote. I don't care how you vote. I just need you to show up at the polls and vote. If you want to vote for the far right, feel free. If you want to vote for the far left, feel free. All right. I have always been politically unaffiliated. I've never liked the Democrats because I've always studied the history of our country, right? But I cannot tell you that they govern worse than Republicans. They do not, right? We do not have to pretend that, right? We're going back into another recession under a Republican administration, right? Like at some point, you have to look at the evidence and judge it for yourself. With that being said, do not care how you vote. I do care if you do not go to the polls on November 3rd. Period, point blank. If you do not go to the polls on November 3rd, I need you off social media complaining about any goddamn thing. And I got to stop cursing so I can actually start playing this on TikTok as well. But they don't understand that voting blue and not black people can cohabitate. Yeah, I mean, look, I get, Mr. Walker, you know more than anything that I get on black people about saying that they're liberals, right? So not only do I get on my sisters by saying they're feminists, I get on black people by saying they're liberals, right? That is not your party. They do not care, okay? They do not care, right? They're offering you nothing for your vote. And again, one party is better governing than the other. I'm not going to make this a political show, but I do want to point out that our sisters are starting to understand performative allyship, and that's what feminism have always offered to our sisters. And that is, I think that contributes more to the gender war than anything else. I think that has been the Achilles heel in the black community, is this allyship that does not exist. Kudos to this young lady for being able to recognize it. She's so close. She's so close to the truth. I hope she discovers it. I hope she finds it. Politics wise, register to vote. All right. I believe most people listening to this are registered to vote. I know this goes to the Black Dads Club group on Facebook. If you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. Please go vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I just believe that it's two things that the black community can do as a last ditch effort, to save the demographic of Afro Americans in this country. And those two things are register to vote, vote at the highest levels, higher than everybody else, and prevent out of wedlock births, right? If you don't want to be married, if you don't find anybody you want, you don't think anybody is on your level, cool. You should not be looking to have children. Children are hard to raise. They're definitely hard to raise when two people are not under the same roof. I am speaking to this as a divorced male with joint custody of my kid that does not have my kid this week, right? And I'll be honest with you, like it's something that I feel bad about, right? My son doesn't have that, right? And I know a lot of people say, if you separate, it might be better. My point is to find someone that aligns with your views and to make the decision that, if we're going to have children, right, or if we're going to get married and we're going to have children, like, we're going to stick it out, right? If we do those two things in the black community, I think we have a shot. If we do not do those two things in the black community, we're going to be a footnote. We're very, very, very going to be a footnote. Our women have brought it in. Barack, they have brought it in, but I get how it happened. Y'all know I give everybody all their credit, but I do understand the attraction and the allure to feminism for women that were coming out of an apartheid. I do get the allure of feminism when you was coming out of the enslavement, and I get the allure when you was coming out of an apartheid. We have to decide. We have to become more intelligent, right? And those are two things that I think that if we focus on those two things, have I really spoke on this for 20 minutes already? Okay, let me get off my soapbox. Two things: register to vote. Make sure that everybody is registered to vote. Show up at the polls on November 3rd, assuming that we have an election, because God knows where the hell this country is going right now. All right. Now, we briefly discussed Jason Whitlock, who y'all know I'm not a fan of, and his beef with Stephen A. Smith, another person that that I'm not a fan of. And when I say I'm not a fan of these guys, this doesn't mean that I'm like, I wish bad for these guys. I think sometimes we misunderstand that. Like, I'm not a fan of the Cowboys or the Redskins. I watch that game, okay, whenever it's played. I don't give a fuck who wins, but I do watch it, right? I'm not pulling for either one of them, okay? But I want to hop in. Let's see here. Jason Whitlock. Where is he at? Let's close this out. 8-minute mark. Now, one of the things I gotta give Jason Whitlock in this interview, and I am not a fan of Jason Whitlock. Okay, Jason Whitlock. This is what pisses you off about these raccoons. Sometimes this is a smart guy right here. And I know what he's really mad at with Stephen A. Smith. Jason Whitlock is an actual journalist. He's a great writer. I knew him from the Kansas City Star, right? So if y'all might not remember this, but back in the day, you used to have to read newspapers, right? And there was articles, and there was great guys who wrote tremendous articles in the paper. Scoop Jackson was my guy for basketball. Jason Whitlock was one of the best writers in the early 2000s when it came to NFL football, right? And I get what his frustration is, because Stephen A. Smith has a reputation in the industry of not being a great writer. Jason Whitlock actually talks about it in this show. I'm not saying this. If you go and listen to this podcast, he's very disparaging of Stephen A. Smith writing ability when it comes here. But I want to play a few things here and talk about it.
You're paying $150 a session 3 times a week.
Sorry, we got to play a commercial
because
I do not play for YouTube Premium.
Take your shirt off. I have a
space. I see immense talent. I see a team around him that's putting him in position to shine. If he tones it down.
Now he's talking about Cam Newton right here. To Cam Newton, to his credit.
More and allows people to focus on what's actually coming out of his mouth rather than how he presents himself, I think he could have even more impact in the media space. But I've been very, celebratory of a lot of Cam's content and a lot of what you guys do around him and how you present Cam. But I just think, for the most part, I think Cam's doing too much. And if he does a little less, he will actually do more. Less is actually more. And I just see a lot of young black men that we're way too concerned with fashion because we come from a matriarchal culture. Anytime this many women are leading this many households and we got this worship of women deal,
I'm going to stop him there because he goes on for a minute. He's talking about Cam, and he's saying that, Cam with the ideal of being an icon. I started it here because I think this is a question that we do have to answer in the black community, right? Which is the question of code switching, right? Is that something that we know is something that we do, right? But what Jason Whitlock is saying is that, hey, we're doing the street culture, right? Whether it's how we dress, how we talk. He actually goes off of Bahami Jones, right? And I get what he's saying, but I disagree, right? Everybody code switch, right? Black people have to code switch more. We talk about this on the pod. We have to code switch more, right? But I have white friends that when they're in a corporate setting, they turn who they are off, right? I have worked with people that are tatted all over and you would never know it, right? I've worked with people that speak very similar to how I speak, right? But when they work, they turn it off, right? And that is a question. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. That's not the point of this. I wanted to start it here because I think when you have a Whitlock, there's this acquiescence to supremacy, right? If I'm a good boy, they're going to treat me good. And I think that's why he's so angry, right? He's been model, and Stephen A. Smith has played the role of the cool uncle. Stephen A. Smith is getting paid. Jason Whitlock not getting paid $20 million a year, right? He's not getting picked up. He's not ESPN's golden boy. And I do think that has provided a lot of envy. But I do think it's a legitimate question, and this is a question that I think as brothers, when we sit around, we need to talk about, like, hey, how real can I be, right? And I'm going to be honest, when you in somebody else's space, you probably got to act the way that they want you to act. When you're in your space, and this is where I disagree with him going off of I am so mispronouncing his name, Bahami Jones, right? Is that when he's on his show, yeah, he's kind of allowed to be the way that he want to be, right? But when he's in somebody else's space, listen to what I'm saying here. When you're in somebody else's house, you probably need to act the way that they want you to act, right? How many people's houses have you been to and they say, hey, take your shoes off at the door? I know we all do it now because we all live in the suburbs now. But back in the day, you know, when you was growing up in the hood and you was growing up in the country, you go to somebody's house and they be like, hey, take your shoes off at the door, right? You're in somebody else's house, right? I'm not saying that you got to change who you are, but you do have to change the behavior when you're in somebody else's spot. I remember I read something on Mel Robbins' page, and they were talking about kids, but you can apply this everywhere. And one of the things that they say is, she said, all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not, right? So how you feel is valid, but what you may need to do is not valid. Turn it down, not off. Absolutely, Brock. Turn it down, not off. Right? You should never want people to see your authentic self at work. Absolutely. You can't be Rick James. You absolutely cannot be Rick James. And, you know, and one of the things in psychology that they say is that oftentimes people make the comment, you know, how someone treats the janitor and they treat the CEO should be the same. And psychologists will actually tell you it's how you treat your loved ones that is the true measure of yourself, right? Because, you know, strangers are always going to get the best version of yourself, right? But when you're in a comfortable setting, right? If I was to go on somebody else's podcast and they say, hey, we don't curse on this podcast. And on Black Dads Club, we curse too much, right? Well, I can't say, well, I'm not going to be my authentic self because I'm in your podcast and I curse too much, right? I might need to pull the F words back, right? A little bit, right? I can't bring my Samuel L. Jackson to that podcast. That is fair. And I think he has a good point there, but I think the reason behind it, I think that's why we push back against Whitlock so much, is because it's the reasoning behind it, right? Like, your reasoning isn't the respect because you're in somebody else's house, right? Your reasoning is, I think you're a better person.
There's nothing like guaranteed 4 p.m. late checkout
this way. And that's where we have an issue with Jason Whitlock.
Forever. If you want to be the GOAT, there was a way to do it and a way to present yourself. Michael Jordan showed it to you. And the athletes have all rejected it and said, nope, I'm going the hip hop route. I'm going to follow the rappers. And trust me, that's what the culture is. Now, I'm 58. I was born in 1967. I've been here long, and y'all, I saw rap from the very beginning. I used to write for Vibe magazine. I understand this history a lot better than most. And again, the friends with rappers, all kinds of stories with rappers. I know who influenced and changed this culture and made athletes think, let me be a rapper, let me present myself as a rapper and as a dope boy rather than as an athlete. And they all abandoned the Michael Jordan approach to dress up like little rappers, and it doesn't have the brand appeal. It doesn't go as far as Michael Jordan.
I dropped this part in here because I was listening to this interview. And again, I applaud Jason Whitlock for being a very, very intelligent brother. And I do agree with him on one point here, right? Is that when you are selling to the masses, right? The black part is a very, very, very small part, right? But I do not believe that you have to ignore yourself in order to sell to the masses. And he brings up Michael Jordan here. And the Michael Jordan quote that we have all heard, right? They even played it in the documentary that ESPN had. Was it Last Dance? Great documentary, right? And I didn't look it up then, right? Because again, when Michael Jordan made this quote, I was like a freshman in high school, I think, right? And I didn't hear about this quote until college, maybe even post-college. College stint one, by the way. And Michael Jordan made the quote. He said, Republicans buy shoes too. Right? And that was fair. By the way, Michael Jordan would not survive in this social media era. He would not have the esteem that we have to him. So I actually went back and looked up the quote, right? When Michael Jordan made that quote, Republican buy shoes too. And we didn't talk, I don't think we talked about this on the pod. Maybe we did yesterday, right? And when I go back and look at the quote, the reason why he made that quote is because there was a senatorial race between Jesse Helms and Harvey B. Gantt. If you're from Charlotte, you probably know who Harvey Gantt is. If you're not from Charlotte, I'm going to tell you who he is, right? And if you're not from North Carolina, you probably don't know who Jesse Helms is. Jesse Helms, if you know who Trent Lott is, right, Mississippi senator, if you know who Robert Byrd is, West Virginia senator, Democratic senator that's not really a Democrat, and if you know who Strom Thurmond is, everybody probably knows who Strom Thurmond is. South Carolina, longest running senator I think ever of all time. South Carolina senator from the great state of South Carolina, by the way. One day will be great. But Michael Jordan makes this quote, Republican buy shoes too. Jesse Helms, it's like worse than all those guys. Like Robert Byrd, Trent Lott, Strom Thurmond, believe it or not. Jesse Helms is worse than all these guys, right? And Harvey Gantt is running again. And embarrassingly, I didn't know this, right? During this time frame, I'm in South Carolina. I'm not involved in North Carolina politics. We really need some sort of mechanism that really tells people about what's going on regionally in politics. Fuck nationwide. See, this is why I can't be on the podcast, because I'm always going to throw that F word in there. The hell with nationwide, right? But locally, we really need to know what's going on. Harvey Gantt was running against Jesse Helms, right? All right, just to give you an idea of Harvey Gantt. Harvey Gantt is a black male, right? Harvey Gantt is one of those black men that's the first to do things, right? Like Barack Obama was like the first, right? Became president. Barack Obama was like, first senator, he was like the first, black Harvard editor, law review editor. So some black men are just really just the first, right? Harvey Gantt is in that, he's in that stratosphere of Maynard Jackson, Willie Richardson. Harvey Gantt is actually there, right? He was the first black admitted to Clemson, which means he's probably the first black to graduate from Clemson. And he went and studied city planning at MIT. He becomes the first black mayor of Charlotte. That is a huge deal if you know the historical history about Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Brown versus Board of Education in Little Rock, Arkansas. First case of school integration. Guess what the second case was? Charlotte, North Carolina. Busing. Guess who case that was? Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is during the 80s, by the way. He becomes the mayor of that city. Okay, like this is not a nobody, right? This is a very important black person. So when Michael Jordan makes the comment and someone asks him, "Hey, who do you support, Jesse Helms or Harvey Gantt?" That's where he makes that comment. South Carolina get a bad rap, but Harvey B. Gantt is from South Carolina. You know what? It was funny, June, is that most of the great blacks are from the great state of South Carolina. So this is not just a nobody, right? And this is a good example. And here's the thing. When I went back and I read that quote and I read the context of it, I was like, you know what? This would have been a perfect opportunity for Jordan. Right? He's 60 years old. He's a billionaire now. Nobody can take anything from him. So this has been a good opportunity for him to say, you know what? Yeah, I did say that. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Harvey Gantt should have been the senator from the state of North Carolina. It should have been Harvey Gantt. Right? But this is where the Jason Whitlocks, proud of my white wife, coach from UNC, right? Hubert Davis, this acquiescence, it becomes the problem, right? This is why allyship is such a bad deal for our sisters, right? It's the acquiescence to supremacy. And again, I'm glad you guys come in on Wednesday nights because I get to go deeper into this stuff and I get to be like really somber, and this is not exciting and it's not fun. And I'm not, I'm not calling women bitches and hoes and telling you how men should go their own way. Like, yeah, now I'm talking about us, right? Some of the problems that we have in our community and things that as black men that we need to clean up. right? But I played that clip because again, he's using Jordan as the mark here. And if we're being honest, Jordan is wrong. Jordan was absolutely wrong, right? Yes, Michael Jordan, we love to death. I just pulled my feet out of a pair of his shoes. I'm not even proud of myself that I never understood the context of that quote until I was a grown man. It's a little bit embarrassing. But it goes back to when we go to the academy, we don't have the indoctrination of things that have transpired. But to our credit, we have not had an allyship either. Like, we understand that, we do not have any friends. But I'm going to finish up with this right here, and then we'll wrap up tonight.
It's fraudulent. Everybody has seen someone like Stephen A. Smith, who in 4th grade, by his own admission, got held back because they thought he was retarded. When he was in 11th grade, his counselor laughed at the thought of him going to college. And again, someone like me that's a journalist that we're the same age. We came up together. I know how fraudulent he was as a sports writer and how they had to rewrite everything that he did. And to see him passed off as the face of sports journalism and the top of the profession, Cat Williams already done told you what that was about. They all get installed. Bob Iger and the $20 million a year that they give this guy to be a puppet and the standard for sports journalism, it's a joke. And
now, this is why he's really mad. I'm playing this part because I'm going to wrap up 2 parts, right? We started this with code switching, okay? Code switching is, hey, you don't get to see me. You get to see the part of me that you're impressed with, right? That's it, right? Acquiescence to supremacy never pays, right? Jason Whitlock has toted all the water that he could possibly tote. Now, y'all know I'm not a Stephen A. One of our most popular reels is going in on Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Clark. But to their credit, right? They have not sold out their community 100% to get to where they are. And there's a reward in authenticity of who you are as a person, right? Stephen A. Smith puts on that he is a black male, right? Even though he's the descendant, he's from New York City, he's a descendant of Jamaican immigrants. He's not an Afro-American, right? He puts it on, though. He's playing a role. And because he does understand that he needs the code switch, and to be fair to Stephen A. Smith, everything that I've ever seen about any black that works with ESPN or in journalism in general have all said that Stephen A. Smith has been, an advocate for their career growing, right? So the jealousy, right, that happens is Jason Whitlock sold out. And he didn't achieve the levels that Stephen A. Smith has achieved. Stephen A. Smith getting paid $20+ million a year, right? Jason Whitlock has sold out completely, right? He bought into, wasn't even an allyship, right? He came in and said, hey, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll speak however you want me to speak. I'll denigrate however you want me to denigrate. To be fair, Stephen A. Smith does go in on blacks. He does not go in on whites. That is true, right? But he doesn't do what Jason Whitlock do, right? So there's 2 lessons here. One is the lesson of code switching, which is something that we do have to do. And again, it's not just blacks. White people code switch. I have seen white people code switch. I know white guys that are more ghetto than me that are VPs, okay? And here's the thing, right? It's even a reminder. Like, even when we do this podcast, Black Dads Club, right? There's a relaxation that we have in Black Dads Club that if I was showing up and I spoke the way that I speak at my job on a daily basis, whenever I'm interacting with individuals and I'm explaining things to them in a manner that is concise and consistent and non-threatening, right? That if I did that on the podcast, you motherfuckers wouldn't even listen. Right? Like, that's what it is. And but here's the thing, right? There's a difference between having to code switch and selling out. And that's the boat that Jason Whitlock missed. That's what he's upset about. He's 58 years old. There's no coming back from him. And here's the thing. Jason Whitlock is a better writer than Stephen A. Smith. It ain't even close. The only writer that I think is better than Jason Whitlock, black sports writer, is Scoop Jackson. That's it. Scoop Jackson is the only person that could write in a black manner that you could not turn the page, right? Like, you gotta keep reading, right? So there's two lessons here, right? There's a lesson of allyship that exists or don't exist, and there's a lesson of understanding how to code switch without selling out. And I think that's my biggest complaint with a lot of black commentators is that they don't understand that balance, right? I like Bahami. I like when he does what he do. I like when Jalen did it. Jalen Rose did it, right? There's a difference between someone that's being performative and someone, to go back to the point of performative allyship, and when someone is being their true self, but they're saying, hey, my audience, right? Black people might only be a third of my audience, right? I got to speak to the other 66% of my audience as well, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's all I got for tonight, man. Yeah, Scoop Jackson was authentic as fucking correct. Yeah. Stephen A. Smith, 100% stole Scoop style. Stephen A. Smith is a chameleon. And sometimes that gets him in trouble because he doesn't have he doesn't have an authenticity. He doesn't. But he's likable, and there's something to be said for that, and there's something to be said for us as men being likable. There's something to be said for us as men understand how to code switch, and there's something to be said for understanding what a win looks like and how to go get that win. But this will be in the Black Dash Club Facebook group. If you do want to rewatch it, share it. Appreciate you guys coming in. June Walker, y'all my boys. Appreciate y'all as we continue to try to figure out how we're going to grow this Wednesday night and have topics to speak on. But that's pretty much all I had tonight, man. To try to tie everything in good together. It's definitely one of my better Wednesday nights. But hey, we'll be out tomorrow night. If you guys are out, we'll be at Vintage tomorrow night. Big things coming. Always feel free to hit me up in the DMs. If you have my number, always feel free to hit me up in my number. Appreciate y'all tuning in, and holla at your boy.